I think that's part of why we call ayahuasca grandmother, is because she'll show you what you need to see. She'll help you kind of get to where you need to get to. And it's challenging though. But she'll nurture you along the way. She'll hold your hand the whole way, especially when it's tough. But she's not afraid to show you things that you need to see. From my life, I've seen my relationship shift with my mom. Like 10 years ago, if you told me that her and I would be best friends, I would have said you were absolutely insane because we used to butt heads all the time. The next ceremony I went into, the dream actually opened up with the medicine to show me those blacked out traumas that were coloring my life in these heavy ways that I had no clue were there. And I was about 40 years old at this point. So and for 4 decades, I had been carrying this around, having no clue that it was filtering the way that I saw and experienced everything.
Welcome back to the Power and Purpose podcast. I am your host, Vanessa Soul. Thank you so much for tuning in and investing your time and energy into listening to today's episode. I greatly appreciate it. I'm super excited for today's guest. We have Branko Moraja, also known as Sean, a traditional shamanic practitioner. He has spent years studying with indigenous leaders in the Peruvian and Brazilian Amazon. His work centers around trauma healing, connection, and guiding people back to an authentic, meaningful life through sacred plant medicine, ceremony, and ancient tradition. I'm so happy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Who are you and who are you not?
Well, as far as my work, I am a ceremonialist. I've been given the blessing of being a shaman through the dietas that I've taken on and partaken in, mostly in the Peruvian tradition in the jungle. And that's where I got the name Branko Moraja. And so I offer sacred retreats that are held in those traditional containers, and ceremonies along with that are in the retreats. And recently I added in this sacred circle, which is more to support people like this community, especially for not just anything with ceremony, but it does include things, preparation, integration, but ultimately it's a community support for people that want to live a spiritual life and need a daily ground, especially, and want the community. And who I am not, as far as this work, definitely not a trip sitter and someone that people typically would go to just kind of experiment or have a joyride. So this work is really dear and sacred to me, and I put a lot into it to make healing available in these containers and for people to really get what they need, not necessarily what they want, but what they need.
Yes. Yes, it's so interesting how there could be a gap there between what we want and what we actually need. I love your grounded presence here, just talking with you here on Zoom, but I can also feel that you probably bring that groundedness into the medicine. And you just said, like, you're not the person who's gonna, take people on these recreational trips, for these joy rides. It's like using the medicine in a very sacred way. I absolutely love that. Tell us a little bit about your journey before you started to study shamanism. What was the like, how did you get guided into this work? Was there a breaking point, a turning point, a breakdown, a breakthrough? What was life like?
All of that, yes, for sure. Well, initially, I grew up in Florida and Orlando, and I had custody of my daughter. I had a home there. Everything was great. Like by all means, I had like the quote unquote American dream. I had a house, and I was making good money. Lived in a cul-de-sac. I had plans for this house and all those things. And then what we call Saturn returns, astrologically happened. And so I was 29, just had hit 29 and just started studying acting. And then all of a sudden needed to move to LA. So I moved to LA, lost custody of my daughter, had a whole lot of shifts that were incredibly challenging. And through that, began to get really humbled and dig really deep into who I was as a person, as a being, and seeing beyond that I am what I do that I'm way more like this spark of light ultimately, right? And ultimately wanted to work through these issues that a friend had kind of lovingly pointed out, really kind of guided my life in a way that I couldn't see. And
What were those issues or challenges?
I had some traumas, like some deep traumas, and I just talked about them very dismissively. And through actually exploring, I uncovered some other stuff I had no clue was even there. I had some stuff that was blacked out from when I was a child that I uncovered through doing ayahuasca. And so, what led me into doing this work, in somewhat of a short summary, is I just wanted to grow as a person and felt I really needed to do a lot of different things to really explore that. I did therapy, and that got me to a point where I understood it, but I felt like there was so much more to actually healing it because the emotional aspect, the energetic aspect, there was still a lot I felt stuck, really. And so I got into energy work and then so many different layers of it. But when I got into plant medicine, then I felt this deep resonance on every level of my being that I was actually starting to heal. And when I went into do ayahuasca for the first time, I had an intention and set that, and the medicine just really opened up me as like an energetic being, like in a way I'd never felt before. And that completely changed my trajectory and just so many things about how I saw the world, like such a different vantage point than I was ever used to. I heard the medicine like telling me things like how my life would be in time, most of which I was like, no, no, no. However, it all came to pass and to be true. And then within a year, I did a ceremony and had a dream before that. And the next ceremony I went into, the dream actually opened up with the medicine to show me those blacked out traumas that were coloring my life in these heavy ways that I had no clue were there. And I was about 40 years old at this point. So and for 4 decades, I had been carrying this around, having no clue that it was filtering the way that I saw and experienced everything. And so, with the immense healing that I've had just in that short, less than a year span, things really started to shift very efficiently. And I just naturally began, like organically carrying certain medicine. Like there's a medicine called hape that gets blown up the nose, shamanic medicine. And so I ended up carrying that, and it just kind of evolved naturally into me offering it to friends and family.
Yeah,
And then it
yeah.
shifted into me just at some points like offering different medicines and then realizing I should probably at least be charging for the medicine. And so it just evolved into me carrying this work. I never thought I would be doing
Right.
like ayahuasca ceremonies until that shifted a few years ago.
What was it like training and studying for ceremonies, studying plant medicine, studying with indigenous tribes? What was that like? What was that experience like?
Go there and it's a serious commitment. And I was totally in. And for me, it was pretty graceful, I feel, all around. Like I didn't have any like incredibly difficult challenges like I saw a lot of people do. The first time I went, we had 45 people from all across the world with this tribe there. And there were quite at least half the people had certain physical things happen to them, infections or whatever the case was. Parasitic infection, as far
Okay.
as you like parasites,
Yes. Okay. Parasites.
Giardia is essentially just a parasite that most people will get on some level or some kind of parasite when they're there just from drinking the
Oh,
water
they'll get it while they're there in the jungle.
inadvertently. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, you have the mosquitoes. I mean, there's a whole host of challenges that Americans
Right.
are typically not at all used to, nor want to deal with necessarily. For me, it was fun because it was kind of like camping, like in the roughest extent of it, but I was totally in for it. So it was certainly a commitment, and it really does, I think, give you humility just from seeing how like certain parts of the world live, and then also like the complexity of getting around from like different like city to city and getting into the jungle all the logistics of that were so different there compared to how most things are here in America. So it gave me an immense perspective on ultimately like how to see things from that perspective of gratitude, but also on ultimately like grounding into the heritage there and like how they do things. They're so rooted into the earth. And part of me, I think, has always resonated with that. So it was really just kind of like a coming home for me. I really resonated with like the traditions, the rituals, the ways that the things are done. There's a lot of things that are kind of done like for the circles that we would be in for ceremony for ayahuasca, and we did a bunch of different other medicines there. And so for me, it was just really kind of a sweet family gathering overall, despite the challenges and the logistical aspects of it.
I don't know how much you know about my story, but people are so shocked to hear most of the time when I'm like, I didn't know what ayahuasca was. I didn't know why I was going to Costa Rica. I booked my stay at my 7 day accommodations. I thought, like and I think this place, they were just getting their certification, or they were like, I think that year was like their first year opening up, right? So it's like even when I went to their website, and it's not like they were doing anything illegal or trying to hide it. I think they were in integrity, but they were also just kind of like launching. But I was still like in the first batch of people. But and it was advertised through the spiritual community that I was attending in Los Angeles. I go to Agape. I've been going there since I was 16 with Michael Bernard Beckwith. And that's how I kind of just felt called to go, but I didn't know what plant medicine was. And they said plant medicine on the website. And I'm thinking like, oh, yay, we're going to be taking herbs and like doing cleanses, singing kumbaya and like drinking smoothies and all this stuff. And that's what I thought plant medicine was. I was that naive. I literally thought it's just like, okay, we're gonna do supplements. And but it was a deep calling. And of course I went there, and my first night was a struggle, and it was during my Saturn return. It was like my first night of doing ceremony was my last night of being 29, and I was turning 30. So it was so interesting to say that you had a big shift happening around your Saturn return as well. And I feel like this medicine does call a certain group of people around the Saturn return or Chiron returns too. But anyway, I won't go too much into my story, but I just wanted to bring so much gratitude about how I was called to it, even though it was a little bit of a shocking experience. Because once I found out about it that night, like I'm unpacking my stuff, I'm getting settled in my room, talking to the person I'm sharing a room with. They're like, "Oh, are you going to do ceremony?" I'm like, "What ceremony?" like what? Like what are we hearing? And they're like, and they were looking at equally, they were looking at me like, wait, how did you end up here? Like you don't know what you signed up for.
Wow.
Obviously, my soul did.
Yeah.
And it was the complete life intervention that I needed, because when I got back, I was not the same person. I was able to completely detach myself from a very unhealthy lifestyle and unhealthy job that I had, and colleagues and things like that. But like we are just like the universal connection, right? Like our intuition, the what do I call it? It's not coming to mind right now. Just like this one knowing, this connection, like we're connected to all things, like the medicine, even being able to call me, and even me. And I think I was in a state of being not as self-aware, not as intuitive as I am now. Like that week was my awakening. So anyway, I'm so grateful. That was almost 8 years ago. I know I only did it that one time, but just like you, so many moments, repressed memories, things that needed
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
surface in the most beautiful way. Like I felt like
Yeah.
it was like a rude awakening, and then I was held, a rude awakening, and then I was held.
Totally.
So,
That's fantastic.
any comment on that?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think that's part of why we call ayahuasca grandmother, is because she'll show you what you need to see. She'll
Yeah.
help you kind of get to where you need to get to. And it's challenging though. So, but she'll nurture you along the way. She'll hold your hand the whole way, especially when it's tough. But she's not afraid to show you things that you need to see that will ultimately encourage your growth and that will ultimately free your soul to be the purest expression of itself.
What are some misconceptions that people have? I mean, plant medicine has gotten a lot more popular in the last 5, 10 years. I think it's great, but then with that also comes just different people's stories, sometimes some fear around it because they heard one person had one bad experience, or one shaman might have been out of integrity or something, and then they generalize all ceremonies to be that way, or just the whole movement to be that way. So what are some misconceptions that typically people might have?
I think the worst thing to actually do is go online and search ayahuasca. If people really want to learn about the medicine in a pure way, I think this is actually easy to find online, the ayahuasca manifesto. It's like a 50-page PDF, and we offer that to anyone that's going to sit with us. And so it's fantastic at answering any questions because it's written from the perspective of ayahuasca talking to you. And so it handles any questions that I think would arise, and probably anything you would want to know about the medicine, what it's doing, what you would be doing with it, how people are working with it, the experience, all these things that I think are put out very eloquently, expressed very eloquently. Another thing is, yeah, as far as the fear aspect, that is, of course, an important thing overall for safety. You need to feel safe and ultimately trust, hopefully, yourself that you're doing this and honoring your soul's calling. And then, especially, feel safe with the people that you're going to be sitting with, the group. Not necessarily the people that are going to be there, because there's a level of trust with that, right? Because you're not going to know if there's 10 people, you're not going to necessarily know any of them. And part of that is trust, like trusting that the medicine is orchestrating this for you and for your highest good. But ultimately, the most important trust is with the facilitator or the shaman. And I think that has to be something that you feel ultimately. And there's a layer of self trust within that. And you ideally would have done some screening with the person, the group, to really understand like the process of the shaman or facilitators. And that trust really needs to be there. That safety is so important for you to be able to let go and be vulnerable, allow yourself to really just be exposed to the medicine, and for the medicine to really do its magic with you. And then there's, yeah, that piece of, if one has heard a bad experience, I think that's the biggest thing, is like doing your own screening as well. Like for us, it's very important to screen people to make sure that there's going to be no potential interactions, but also to make sure that they're ultimately in the right space. The preparation is always very important and key. And so ideally there's at least a couple of weeks for that, to kind of prepare like the mind, the body, the soul, like every aspect of your being, so that you are fully prepared to get the most out of the ceremony.
Would you say that ceremony and ayahuasca, just like the whole experience, because it's not just someone taking medicine. There's preparation, there's dieta, there's allowing yourself to be guided, trusting yourself, you guys vetting people. You're preparing mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Would you say that this is not just a spiritual experience, but it's also psychological? It might be also, for me, it was deeply somatic, and I didn't expect that. Well, again, I'm the one that ended up there not knowing what I signed up for consciously. But yeah, would you say it's like it's multi-layered, or how would you describe that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it works through every level of our beings, the mental, the physical for sure. And part of that is the purge, the potential of purge that a lot of Americans are afraid of,
Yeah.
because we'll label it as a bad thing, versus understanding the purge, which is part of the manifesto, where it talks about, if the purge happens, which it may or may not, it's actually this much deeper process than just your body getting rid of stuff, right? Throwing up. We're not throwing up, we're actually purging something out on every level, like mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, that is not serving us. and it's helping us be ultimately more at peace within our being and to clear whatever is in the way of that peace, ultimately our light flowing through our whole vessel.
Yeah. So we're literally purging energy.
Yeah.
Would you say, or would you describe
Yeah.
that differently?
Oh, for sure. And I've seen people purge, myself included, where you make the sounds and you do the actions, your body does it, but nothing literally comes out. But there's a
Ah,
lot of energy in it. And sometimes that happens.
I still to this day have 100% certainty that I purged an entity and I
Mhm.
saw it.
Oh yeah.
And it
It
was
was
long and
awesome.
it was huge and it was dark and it was painful and it was like fighting to come out. And I'm like in the bathroom
Wow.
on all fours, like, this is my first night in. Again, I'm
Fantastic.
I didn't know what I signed up for, but like 3 hours later, like I'm fighting for my life, you
Yeah, yeah.
know? And yeah, so how important is that yet? Like, yes, we're purging energy, but you also, or anyone, we also might be purging things that we didn't know that were attached to us. Can you speak to
Sure.
that at all?
Absolutely. And that's a huge one. Interestingly, what's kind of become a niche for me, I mean, I don't advertise this, but is removing entities from people. And I'll hold mushroom ceremonies and ayahuasca ceremonies, and it's the same thing. They come up if they're there and need to be cleansed, and the person is ready to cleanse them. And those are big because they're really coloring how you see the world. It's literally like
Yeah.
having a filter, a dark filter that colors even your emotional experience of the world. So it's coloring your
Yes.
whole experience, not just how you see things. And so it's important to have someone that can handle those. If you have just a facilitator, especially in an ayahuasca ceremony, they may or may not have the tools to handle entities. Shamans are given those tools and really know how to
Right.
handle them. And the thing is, too, is sometimes they come out of one person and they can potentially get into another person. So that's another
Right.
important aspect of handling these energies slash entities. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, there absolutely needs to be a mindfulness, attunement as to what everyone is going through in the ceremonial space, and especially
Yeah.
as an entity present to help all of those energies and entities be handled in a way where they're actually transmuted and dealt with, like handled fully.
Mm. In my case, what I went to the rush. I got up from the circle. I went to the restroom because I just knew something intense was going to happen, and I was still trying to control my experience. First night, still
Yeah,
thinking I can control things, right?
yeah,
Classic. But it's so in my experience, not that I did anything right or wrong. This is not about that, you guys. I'm just trying to like kind of like really get Sean's perspective, like so that way when you find yourself in this situation, you'll have more options. You can kind of sit with it. Like, okay, instead of running to the restroom, why don't I just like let the shamans hold me? So my question is, um, do you think I could have just stayed where I was and been maybe a little bit more supported with what I was going through? Or, who knows, maybe that was the best thing for me because I was in privacy, I was in the bathroom and I'm like going through this like self-exorcism, right? What are your
yeah.
thoughts?
Ultimately, I feel it happened as it was supposed to,
Sure.
and that's where you were at. And at this point, if that happened again, I would suggest staying in the space because
Staying in
ultimately,
the space.
because we get in our heads of how things are supposed to look or how we want them to look, right? Versus what we need and what's actually like serving the group the best and ourselves the best. And ultimately, everything that happens in the ceremony space, even you in the bathroom, that's part of the cleansing and clearing for everyone. So
Mm,
the purging
I never thought of
process,
that part,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah. And the purging process even is part of the medicine. And people hearing the sounds, it's interesting because every single sound in ceremony is part of like the sound healing, even if they're unpleasant. So the sound of somebody purging
Oh.
is it's actually helping the other person and some levels giving them permission to kind of release and let whatever isn't serving them.
That's so interesting. And sometimes people complain about that part, don't they?
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
like,
And
someone was
yeah,
screaming and it ruined my whole experience. And I'm like, how do you know it ruined
yeah, exactly.
it?
Yeah. So yeah, we put the
How do you know
expectation.
it just like it could have maybe that allowed them to access something later? They may not. have connected the dots, but like,
Yeah.
we can't, our mind still wants to kind of jump to these conclusions. But thank you for pointing that out. I'm just going to repeat it just so it lands. Like everything that happens in ceremony, all of the sounds, the cries, the laughters, everything in between, it's all part of what's being like processed and
And orchestrated.
alchemized and
Yeah.
orchestrated. That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
How do they work with entities? Is there a simple way to describe this? I know it's a deep process.
Generally, simplistically, they need to be purged out. So there are certain tools that can be used that way. The Ikaros are the plant medicine songs. They come from the plants. That's why they're called Ikaros instead of songs. And those are a very important part of the medicine. So the Ikaros, they alchemize with the medicine the frequencies that are actually already in us, and they potentiate, they make it stronger and more effective, the medicine. And the Ikaros are ultimately the original sound healing.
Yeah.
So it's an important part of the ceremony. And especially if you're in a challenging process, it's really helpful to focus on the Ikaros because it's only going to help you. And so if
Yeah.
somebody's going through an entity process, then that's something that I'll go to them and do the Ikaros specifically. And generally, we'll be working with Mapacho, the South American tobacco.
Hmm.
It's very powerful for cleansing and for pulling things out, and also for protection. So generally, those two elements are crucial. And then perhaps another medicine or something along these lines to help them to purge if they need that. And it might be hape or another medicine I serve called ambil, which is a tobacco paste. And
I
sometimes
haven't
it's
heard
just,
about that one. Can you
yeah,
say it
that
again?
one. It's called ambil, A
Ambio.
Ambil, ambil.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
And
pure
give us a little
tobacco
bit more
paste.
context on that.
Yeah, so they take the South American tobacco, which is a lot more nicotine, no tar, and they cook it for about 24 hours with a lot of love and prayer. And so you just do like a very little bit and you put it in your mouth, and it's a really nice energy cleanse. It's a good way to tap into that grandfather, that divine masculine energy. Awesome for connecting the mind to the heart, and it's just a really good medicine overall, and it can be used many different ways, just like the tobacco can. So
Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
it can
And
be used
then
to help
for
purge or help encourage things, but it can also just be used to ground in and kind of connect deeper into the medicine.
yeah. And then also just some more context on Hape as well for those who may not be as
Yeah,
familiar. And then what's the difference between those two? Because those two also might overlap a little, right? Or it sounds like
yeah,
it.
for sure. Yeah, because the ambil and the hape, they both have the tobacco paste. That's important. So the ambil is just the pure tobacco paste. The hape has a base of the tobacco, and it's dried with other plants, other herbs, and then they'll mash it up super fine, and that gets kind of scooped up and then blown up into the nose, into the third eye ultimately, and then blown up the other side. So it's gets the feminine, the masculine side of the body, and then gets into the third eye, helps decalcify it. Fantastic for cleansing and can be used to purge. But it can also just be used to ground and connect to spirit, but also
Yeah.
just ground and kind of clear energies and kind of align the chakras, just get you into a place of embracing the medicine in a deeper way, which is where I love to use the tobacco tools. It's fantastic for that.
Do you think it's the medicine, whether it's the tobacco, the Hape, or the person, or a combination of both, that has the wisdom to give the grounding energy, like, okay, like you just took it, we're gonna ground, now we're gonna sit with this. Or in other cases, it takes us in a different direction where we are purging. Do you think and I know there's different blends, and of course there's stronger blends that are more designed to have a more intense experience or a more meditative experience. Um, but yeah, well, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's the body, like our soul, that's like, oh, okay, like this was a grounding hape, but let's just go ahead and start purging things. Like, what do you think
Yeah.
it is?
Yeah. It's funny. The body and the soul definitely is what dictates. And the medicine, I think, is what dictates
Uh,
based on your body and your soul. So I'll pour the medicine and I'll have an intention to pour X amount visually, and then maybe less will fall out or more will fall out. Sometimes a lot will fall out. And I'll trust that it's how it's supposed to be. And so then I'll also like intentionalize it just for ultimately like healing simplistically. I've always put an intention in anything I serve. And so I'll serve it. And I've had intentions where it's like, okay, let's just simply ground and connect them to the medicine. And then they're purging. And then I've had intentions of, well, let's purge and cleanse this. And sometimes they keep it. And that doesn't necessarily happen because they need to purge perhaps in a different way. And
Yes.
it's not through the mouth, right? So ultimately the body dictates. I tune into
Yeah.
that. And so ultimately I'm like doing my best to honor the medicine with the medicine and your body and your needs with what you need. And ultimately, it is your body and your soul that's like, okay, this is what's going to happen because it's going to best serve us.
Yeah. Incredible stuff. One more piece of my experience that I got to share because I just feel like it's so called to share. In 2023, I didn't even know like I was dealing with like a parasite infection, probably like a couple different ones. I didn't really know, but it was Hoppe that brought it up. It was because I started to and I went in going into it, took a meditative dose, meditative blend. I'm at 7 a.m. getting ready for my day, and next thing you know, I am like it was I mean, I don't know time wise. It probably felt like 30 minutes, but it probably wasn't 30 minutes. It was just intense. Sweating, purging, and then seeing what I was purging out, I'm like, oh, that's just not just regular, vomit. I'm purging parasites. Like I have a parasite, but like that. And so it was literally that's what brought that to my awareness. And especially as an energy healer, I knew my energy was off. And I was trying to work with other psychics during that year and I was trying to figure it out. And it was that. It was like internally my body was trying to fight that infection. So I'm so grateful for Hape and my body's wisdom, right? Like
Mm,
here I am taking that meditative dose and it takes me into full purging mode. And it brought a lot to awareness. And then of course I got like on a protocol that year to kind of help me like finish it out in the right way.
yeah, fantastic. It's a great diagnostic tool.
Yeah. Do you have any personal stories either either in ceremony for yourself or any type of medicine that you've taken for yourself where you've had like a breakthrough or unexpected or significant experience?
Well, my very first ayahuasca was, yeah, breakthrough experience for sure. It permanently changed the way that I saw the world. And it's funny, I had always felt this disconnect from how I showed up in the world compared to how I felt inside. And part of it was like even how I dressed and presented myself to the world compared to like what felt natural and organic to me. Like I wouldn't have had like I have long hair now, and I had like super short military hair for the longest time just because that's what I was programmed to believe that's how I was supposed to look, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
really helped me get to the place of ultimately like critical thinking and figuring things out for myself. So for me, I would say that that was the biggest reset, that very first ayahuasca weekend. And I did two ceremonies, which I think were perfect. It all happened. And very much like you, I fought the purge the first day. And then when I chose to like ease into it the second day, it was this beautiful process that I saw and experienced the medicine of. And that also helped me again see ultimately everything that's happening to us is for our growth, right? We like to have things that we want and we resist the things that we don't want. And ultimately, it's all here to support us on some level to grow or to encourage us to grow.
So it sounds like, these medicines, they help us because they help us release through purging. But how do these medicines help people with, childhood trauma, PTSD, grief, substance abuse or addiction, or just emotional blockages? For example, someone not being able to like cry, they haven't cried in like 15 years. Like besides the relief, like the purging that we're doing, what else do you think might be happening that is shifting some of these challenges that I just listed for a person?
In the shamanic world, there's like the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world, right? And the lower world is generally more reflective of like our soul, like the subconscious levels of our soul, right? And the upper world is more like the kind of beautiful, fun, uh, light and airy layers of our soul. More generally, they're more enjoyable, the upper levels,
Mhm.
right? That's where you can go to like these incredible realms with these sacred plants if you're dieting them, or with even just sitting with ayahuasca. So those levels are alone are where we deal in the shamanic world with whatever is blocking your fullest expression of yourself. And then even within that, the medicine is working with us on every level of our being. We have physical, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. And then we also have like, it'll even alter perhaps our DNA to cleanse out things that are interfering with it, whether it's energetically or literally, and even in our bodies. And part of the process of reorchestrating things for balance is our chemistry. And the purge does help rebalance that. And it doesn't have to be a purge like out of the mouth or even a bottom end purge. It can be like you getting hot or cold or back and forth. That's a
And then
purge.
shaking. That's what I
Totally.
was doing for like
Yeah,
hours, is like
for sure.
like
That,
just
that was my first
convulsing.
ceremony too. Yeah, like a
Yeah.
Kundalini awakening where you just like it's just moving so much energy because it's
Yeah.
reorchestrating and rebalancing things, not just physically or energetically, but on every possible level. And so those things are really important. And it's just also with where you're at right then to work and rebalance you to get you where you need to be to then move forward in a more graceful, authentic way for yourself and for the world, for all your relations.
What do you see possible for, like, I like these medicines have been around for I don't know how long, centuries,
About
thousands of years.
150,000 years for ayahuasca
Okay, okay.
tobacco.
But in our modern society, this is like a new phenomenon, would you say?
Yeah, pretty new, yeah,
Yeah.
comparatively, especially.
Do you see this continuing to shift the collective as we are all kind of embracing these alternative ways of healing? More people are becoming more open than ever. Even people who have been, you know, more religious, or they've been more a little bit more strict as to what they allow themselves to participate. Even those people are now open to these alternative medicines like ayahuasca and hape. So like what do you feel, or what do you see happening continuing to unfold?
That's a fantastic question. I think it's such a reflection of the zeitgeist we're in, and people are aware. And this is like this interesting fact that has been true for years that we have the most in America, we have the most advanced medical system, yet we have the most sick people in the world. And it's really interestingly disproportionate. And to think about that, especially. And so I think a lot of people are really catching on that pharmaceutical industry is built on capitalism, right? And that's their sole goal is profit. And some of the medicines may have some efficacy. And then again, there's always these side effects. And sometimes the side effects are just as bad as the illness or worse. And so
Sure.
I think people are really actually wanting medicine rather than a pharmaceutical or prescription or a band-aid, something that will just temper what's going on and actually then just treat the symptoms. They actually do want to cure it. They actually really want to feel better permanently on like every level. So I think the draw is pulling people in to be part of this collective, right? Where I do see there being a much bigger impact with our
Hmm.
whole society and community and the world. And that's part of what really motivates me to do this work. I do see the
Yeah.
ripple effect. And just from my life, I've seen my relationship shift with my mom. Like 10 years ago, if you told me that her and I would be best friends, I would have said you were absolutely insane because we used to butt heads all the time. And
Right.
I was the oldest. And so we always had this kind of weird dynamic, even as adults. And now she's been my best friend for, I don't know, 7 years, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
So it does heal us on all these other levels that we don't even necessarily cognize or understand. So ancestrally is a huge one. So it helps
Yeah,
heal our family on all these levels, past and future generations, especially ayahuasca.
yeah,
So yeah, there's a huge ripple effect into our
yeah,
world on every level.
yeah. Is it possible? This is just Sean's opinion. We don't really know for sure. Like, there's probably no way to know. But, we all have claircognizance and all these psychic abilities. I believe we all have them. Like this, some things we just know. So I think I'm going to ask this next question from that perspective. Do you think that eventually we can get to a state for those who choose to participate in working with shamans in sacred medicine with integrity, and ayahuasca and hape, all the supportive medicines. Do you think we can get to a state to where trauma and fragmentation and just distorted energy is like almost extinct or even just really, really reduced to a very minimal level? Do you think that's possible, or do you think like we'll always have the level of contrast that we have?
Really do think the level of contrast will shift. And I think that's part of what is drawing people to the medicine is that a lot of people are sick of it, literally, and even just mentally, like they're ready for a change and like a permanent change, like a real change, a shift. And I think that's a big part of the draw to the medicine.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I love that. Well, thank you so much. This conversation has been just so special and so inspiring. And I know my time is coming to reconnect with some medicine and do some cleansing and things like that. So, and this conversation is another confirmation for me to get that going. How can people find you?
Well, my website is divineguidance.me. Uh, so that's probably the best way. I do have TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. So I've gotten
Cool.
into posting on there as well.
Yeah. And we have all of his links here in the show notes. We also have a link for your retreats. So do you have some retreats still coming up for 2026?
Awesome. Yeah, I do. Offering retreats in Asheville as well as in Joshua Tree at this point. And yeah, there's, I think, at least four more offerings for the rest of the year for each city. Yeah, we have one
Cool.
coming up on June 19th in Joshua Tree.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I love
When's
it.
that
Yeah.
one?
June 19th.
June 19th. Oh gosh. And I mean, I'm not in California. Anyway, I'm feeling called to, I might be working with you pretty soon. I'm in
Awesome. That'd
Mexico
be
now, but
great.
I know I'll be in California around that time. So that's just really interesting. Okay, this conversation was amazing. Before I keep going and keep
Mhm.
asking questions, thank you, thank you, thank you for your time. If you guys really enjoyed this episode, please share this episode with at least one friend. In fact, I'm sure someone already came to mind and you're like, oh man, so and so had questions about this. They were just asking me about this the other day. Send them a text, let them know you were thinking about them, and send them this episode. You'll be doing them a favor and us as well. Thank you, thank you. Any last words? Any words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. I think around fear. Fear is excitement of the soul disguised by the mind.
Mm,
I didn't make that up.
wow.
That came from like a guru, a Vedic monk.
Okay, say it one more time so I can let it land.
Fear is excitement of the soul disguised by the mind.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for leaving us with that.
Yeah.
Namaste, everyone. Have a great day.